I want to be blunt with you up front. The Cowboys are standing in a hole right now, and anything I tell you about a playoff run is going to start with the words if and maybe, because those words are honest. You know the record, you feel the frustration, and you've seen how hard the margin for error has become. So let's lay out the situation plainly and then figure out whether it still makes sense to hope. Right now, to get into the postseason in the most realistic way, the team will almost certainly need to finish with 9 wins. I say that because of how the playoff landscape is built now. 3 wild-card slots, the 17-game schedule, and because the teams that did crawl out of a 3 or fewer win hole in recent seasons needed about 9 wins to do it. So for you, the takeaway is simple. 9 wins is the target that keeps the math possible. Anything less, and the path gets a lot narrower, even impossible depending on tiebreakers. I'm not trying to sell you on false optimism. I'm giving you the practical scoreboard. 8 games left. You need 6 or 7 of those to get to 9, depending on how ties and head-to-head rules fall. That's the mountain the Cowboys put in front of themselves with their early season performance. I'm also not going to pretend the emotional side isn't real. The bye week, the coaching chatter, and yes, the very heavy background of Marshawn Nealon's tragic passing. All of that changes how you watch each game. It's okay to feel conflicted. You can be mad about the football and still mourn and care about people. If that resonates with you, tell me in the comments. Say, I feel this. Because this channel isn't just about X's and O's. It's about how the team fits into your life. Now, for the practical side, with 8 games remaining, the simplest math is this. Win 6, and you've got 9. Win 5, and you're almost certainly out, unless the league shakes out weirdly in your favor. That's not a prediction, it's a plain accounting of what historically has been required. I'm going to show you the numbers and a few precedent cases in this video, but first I want us to be honest about the mental shift that has to happen if you're rooting for a comeback. You can't treat every game like the season opener anymore. Every contest is a must-win or a pivotal swing that changes the odds dramatically. That does not mean you should stop enjoying the football. It does mean your emotional investment will feel different, sharper, more urgent. Quick ask. If you think the Cowboys can still get to 9 wins, type yes in the comments and say which game you think will be the turning point. If you think 9 wins is out, type no, and tell me which game you think they'll drop. That proves the point. And real quick, if you're watching and you enjoy straight, no-nonsense breakdowns like this, help the channel get to 16,000 subscribers. That's a small, tangible goal that lets me do more follow-ups and deeper breakdowns for you. Hit subscribe and the bell if you can. It really helps. Let's dig into the numbers because they're the backbone of this entire conversation. Since 2020, when the NFL added that extra wildcard spot in each conference, 55 teams have found themselves in the same kind of hole the Cowboys are in right now. 3 or fewer wins through their first 9 games. That's a pretty wide sample of recent football, modern rules, and playoff structures. Out of those 55, only 5 managed to climb back and reach the postseason. 5 out of 55. That's less than 10%, and it tells you immediately how steep this mountain is. But before you throw up your hands, let's look at what those 5 teams had in common, because this is where a little hope still lives. They all found a late-season rhythm, usually with a defense that started forcing turnovers or a young quarterback who suddenly caught fire. Most importantly, they all reached 9 wins or close to it. That's the threshold that keeps popping up. Washington did it in 2020, technically with a 7-9 record that was good enough only because the NFC East was historically weak that year. And Jacksonville in 2022 did it by finishing 9-8. The other 3 were wildcard teams, meaning they didn't even win their divisions but fought their way into that last playoff slot. The most recent and relevant example for Cowboys fans is the 2023 Green Bay Packers. They were 3-6, finished 9-8, snuck into the playoffs, and then went into Dallas, and ended the Cowboys season in a way that still stings. You remember that feeling, the shock of that game, the frustration of knowing the team never matched the energy or preparation of an opponent that simply believed it could make a run. The irony is that the Packers are now the blueprint for the kind of comeback Dallas needs this year. Same hole, same challenge, same target. Now, if you zoom in on the post-2021 data, that's after the league expanded to a 17-game schedule, the sample gets even more specific. 43 teams since then started 3-6 or worse through 9 games. Only 4 of them managed to reach the playoffs. So yes, it's technically possible, but it's rare, and it demands something close to perfection over the final stretch. That's why every conversation you hear about playoff scenarios for the Cowboys includes that number 9. 9 wins is the line between dream and reality. And if we're talking pure math, that means the Cowboys must win 6 of their remaining 8 games to have a real shot. The tie on their record complicates things slightly, but for simplicity, think of it as a half-win cushion that only matters if several other teams finish in that same gray area. You can't count on that. What you can count on is that the head-to-head losses against NFC teams like Carolina will hurt if those teams are in the wild card race. That's why each remaining NFC matchup becomes almost like a 2-game swing. You win, you advance. You lose, you hand someone else the tiebreaker. I want to pause here and ask you something. When you think back over the past few years, which comeback story stands out most to you? Maybe it's Jacksonville turning around their season, or maybe it's that 2023 Packers run. Tell me in the comments, which team's turnaround gave you the most hope that this kind of rebound is possible? Because if you can point to one that felt real, then you know it's not just blind faith to believe Dallas still has a small chance. It's about execution, health, and catching fire at the right time. All right, Cowboys Nation. Now that we've got the numbers straight, let's look at the real battlefield, the remaining schedule. Because the truth is, the math only matters if the matchups give you a fighting chance. Dallas has 8 games left. To hit that magic number of 9 wins, they've got to take 6 of those 8. That means no more than 2 losses, and realistically, one of those can't come against another NFC wildcard contender. That's a razor-thin margin, but not impossible. Let's start with the upcoming stretch and talk about where the opportunities lie, where the danger zones are, and what kind of run would actually put this team back into playoff contention. The Buccaneers game is a tone setter. Tampa's defense can be tough against the run, but they've been giving up big plays through the air all season. If Dak Prescott can stay efficient, protect the ball, and get CeeDee Lamb involved early, this is a very winnable game. The key here? Fast start. The Cowboys can't afford another sluggish first half like we saw against Carolina. Win this one, and you build momentum right away. The trip to Washington is always messy, but Washington is in a rebuild phase, and their defense has been inconsistent. This is another must-win game. No excuses. You take care of business here, and suddenly, back-to-back wins would start to flip the tone around the league. People would be saying, okay, Dallas isn't dead, yet. Then we get Houston, and that's where it gets tricky. C.J. Stroud and that offense can light up anyone. If this defense can't generate pressure or control the tempo, it could turn into a shootout, and that's risky. This might be one of the toss-up games in the stretch. You could drop it and still stay in the hunt, but only if you win the rest of the NFC matchups. Cincinnati is the toughest test on the remaining slate, no question. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and that offense are a handful, even when they're banged up. If Dallas wants to prove it's not just padding wins against weak teams, this would be the statement game. Realistically, this could be one of the two losses in the final stretch. And that's okay, as long as you don't let it spiral. The New York Giants game has to be a win. No scenario gets you to 9 without sweeping games like this. Whether it's Daniel Jones or whoever they run out there, the Cowboys have to handle their business. Anything less would be a collapse. The rematch at Carolina carries emotional weight. That earlier loss to Carolina was ugly, and the Cowboys owe them payback. If the defense can contain the run and the offense can find any rhythm, this should be redemption. Win it, and you even the NFC record a bit. Then there's the Eagles at home, huge game. If Philadelphia is still fighting for playoff position, this could be a bloodbath. If they've locked in their spot, maybe they rest players, and that's where a Dallas upset could happen. Either way, this game could define whether the Cowboys stay alive or not. Finally, the trip to Detroit could be a win-or-go-home scenario. Detroit plays tough at home, but they've shown cracks. If the Cowboys get here with 8 wins, this could be the game that decides everything. Now let's line it up into 3 possible paths to 9 wins. The realistic path is winning Tampa Bay, Washington, the Giants, Carolina, Philadelphia, at home, and one of either Houston or Detroit. Losses to Cincinnati and a toss-up. That gets you to 9. The optimistic path is catching lightning in a bottle. Dak gets hot, the defense regains form, and you sweep all NFC opponents left, including taking down Philly and Detroit, which would put you at 10 wins. The long shot path is going 5-3, but getting help from chaos across the NFC and tiebreakers, that's messy and depends on other teams collapsing. Out of those 3, realistic, optimistic, long shot, which one do you think the Cowboys are on right now? Drop the number in the comments and tell me which game you think will define the season, because that's where the debate gets real. Now that we've mapped out the road, let's talk about what it's going to take to actually walk that road. This team's problems don't come from a lack of talent. They come from execution, consistency, and leadership when the pressure's on. If the Cowboys are serious about climbing out of this hole, 3 things need to change immediately. How they start games, how they finish drives, and how they respond to adversity. First, the slow starts must end. Too many games where the offense sleepwalks through the first quarter. The defense keeps things close, and by the time Dak finds a rhythm, the hole is too deep. Teams that make late-season runs all had urgency from kickoff. They came out swinging, scripted plays to get their best players involved early, and forced the opponent to chase. For Dallas, that means the offensive game plan has to be aggressive from the first snap. Use motion to free up matchups, get ceedee moving across formations, and let Dak use his legs to extend plays. When he's in rhythm early, the whole team follows. Second, red zone execution must improve. Too many stalled drives and field goals from inside the 20. That can't happen if you want to win 6 of 8. Inside the red zone, Dallas has been predictable. Defenses are keying on fades and quick slants. We need creativity. Bootlegs, tight end misdirection, designed quarterback draws when defenses sell out. The coaching staff must treat these final games like elimination rounds because they are. Third, the defense needs its identity back. Early season, this group looked aggressive and playmaking. Micah Parsons everywhere, Darren Bland creating turnovers. Lately, that edge has dulled. The pass rush looks tired, tackles are being missed, and third down defense has been shaky. This defense doesn't need perfection. It needs impact plays. Forced fumbles, sacks on third down, tipped passes. Those are momentum changers and they can flip a game in a quarter. And don't forget leadership. Dak Prescott has to be more than a quarterback. He needs to be the voice of urgency. When the season's hanging by a thread, the locker room needs someone who refuses to let complacency set in. No more cliches about execution. Fans want to feel the urgency. Finally, coaching adjustments are critical. Conservative game management and timid play calling have cost. This team wins. If the staff wants to salvage the season, they must show creativity and confidence. Go for it on 4th and short when the math says you have to. Take shots downfield when you have a mismatch, and play to win, not merely to avoid losing. Because if this team is going down, it should go down swinging. So where does that leave us? Let's be honest, the odds are stacked against the Cowboys. The numbers say it's unlikely, but the door is not shut. A roster with talent like CeeDee, Lamb and Micah Parsons can still get hot. And if Dak gets stretches of command and the coaching staff shows aggression, sudden momentum can flip everything. If they win the next two, Tampa and Washington, the narrative flips overnight from "season's over" to "hang on, here come the Cowboys." That's how fast things change in this league. But if the team continues with slow starts, red zone failures, and a defense that can't create impact plays, you'll be looking at something like an 8-9 finish, and a season that ends quietly. So here's my straight-up question for you. What's the one thing the Cowboys need to fix first? Offense, defense, or coaching? Drop it in the comments and make your case. And if you're still watching and you appreciate in-depth breakdowns like this, help the channel reach 16,000 subscribers. Subscribe and ring the bell so we can keep doing these deep dives and run weekly simulations as the season unfolds. Hit like if you're still riding with this team through the chaos. Share this with a friend who needs to stop panicking about the record, and comment your final prediction. 9-8 and sneaking in, 8-9 and falling short, or something crazier. Look, the story isn't over yet. Not until that final whistle blows. Whether you're dreaming of a wild card miracle or already eyeing the draft board, the next month will show exactly who these Cowboys are. Do they fold, or do they fight? If they fight, we'll be right here breaking it down, week by week.